All right. Hi, everyone. Um, we are just getting started here, so I'm just going to present. Um, I know Anas, I think we met yesterday, so welcome back.
Yes, since long time.
Yeah, long time, I know.
Yeah.
Darth, Raghu, Adam, Amber, great. Well, as we let some folks in, I'd just love to hear again from you in the chat. We'll be using the chat actually a lot today. So really important if you can just give me a sense of where you're coming in from. So I am actually located in Perth in Western Australia. But I have lived in Europe the last 5 years in Ireland and the Czech Republic. And prior to that, I was in California, which is where I'm from. So you don't need to give that much information, but just a little bit about where you're calling in from today. And if you could give one word to describe your mood right now, even if that might be that you're just a little bit tired, let me know. So would love to see some responses in the chat. Oops. All right, motivated. Great. Phoenix. Oh, wonderful. Festive. It is such the festive season. I do love Christmas. Excited starting your day. So some folks stretching and getting up. Wonderful. Okay. Oh, and Mylin. Wonderful. I think we're signed up for a coaching call later. So excited to see you guys. Crispy around the edges. Nice. That's a good description of a mood. Thanks. Cool. All right. Well, I want to give us the most amount of time possible to get to the content. And I know some people will be trickling in a little bit, but I think today is really about getting some of the basics, some of the questions that you're going to get in a really general HR interview, and how you can kind of move beyond just the basic answers that you'd give to really tune yourself to each company's culture. So that's why I've called it cracking the culture interview, and a little bit about me. So why I might be somebody who knows a little bit about this. So my experience is primarily in a lot of different organizations, but a lot of different people-centered roles. So, for example, some of the past roles I've held have been a senior manager in culture and operations. That was for a tech company. I've been an HR business partner for an IT, and then also for a tourism and RV rental company that was growing with a tech side of it. I've also held roles as the head of learning and development, and I've been an HR consultant for a few different companies, some of which have been big in big pharma, some of which have been in the arts. So lots of different experience, and I have done a lot of in-house recruitment, so building recruiting processes from the ground up, as well as working with some of the ATS applicant tracking systems and creating scorecards. At one of the companies I worked at, I actually built these values scorecards to assess culture fit. So a lot of times when you're focusing also on diversity and inclusion, companies are trying to get away from, oh, like that person seems like a fit, and actually really drilling it down to seeing if you're applying to the values, not just, I like this person and I want them to join my team. So that we can really figure out what about that person fits with the team, not about their individual characteristics. So some good stuff there as well. And I've personally interviewed hundreds of candidates as the cultural interview. Again, trying to get a real sense of who somebody is and if they would work well within a company. So that's kind of my corporate and organizational experience. But additionally, as a coach, I have been coaching since 2018. I'm a certified coach and really love working with people and with organizations. Ideally, my clients are either at the executive level or they're kind of mid-level managers looking to improve their skills and take on more leadership. And I also provide career coaching for those who are kind of looking to make a change in their career and to level up in some of their career work. So through Leland, you can see some of the offerings I have there. So we'll talk more about that at the end. But I just wanted to give you some context so that any time throughout this presentation, you want to ask questions. Based on my experience, I'm happy to answer those as well. All right. So why does the culture interview matter? It seems like when you have a call with HR, maybe that's the recruiter the first time you're meeting with them. Maybe you get to kind of a second screen. You've had a couple of meetings and an interview with folks you might be working with. And then there's somebody from HR that just kind of has a second double check here. Or, sometimes you have somebody in your interview panel that's been selected to think about your culture fit. It matters. And it matters because you get to assess the company and they get to assess you based on your values. And this really goes both ways. So the idea is not just that you're thinking, like, I might be great for this company because I'm a hard worker and they really value hard work. But also, if you really, let's say, like, care about doing good, if you want to be in a service focused organization, and the company that you're looking at, one of their values is kind of to get things done like as quickly as possible, and maybe they're not really caring about their impact, you might be able to kind of parse out if that company works for you or not. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is that this is not just the role that you're looking for, but the company culture is going to shape your career. So I think that it's easy to think, oh, maybe, I'm a product manager. I don't know if I want to stay as a product manager. But if you're in the right company culture and you really value learning, and so do they, the company culture will kind of shape how you can move in your career because they also value learning. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you're in the right cultural fit. And if you find a company whose culture you're excited about, if they hear that you echo those same values, it's much more likely that they're going to give you the job. And then the last part is the culture interview can make you or break you, regardless of your technical skills. So I have to give you the honest truth, which is I have interviewed loads of folks. For example, really like well-developed salespeople, even some lawyers. And as much as they have impressive resumes, they have gone to a really great school, maybe they've got an MBA. If something just doesn't feel right, an interview panel will knock them down. And a lot of times people know, this is about working with other people. And regardless of your experience, if they feel like, you're not a great cultural fit, they can use that as a reason why you might not get the job. So really tuning to again, each individual company and some of their values, their ways of working, doing your research is going to give you the edge and making sure that they're not just seeing you for the technical side, but they're seeing how you can fit into their teams. All right. So to kind of start understanding the cultural fit, again, as I mentioned, it's all about aligning yourself with the company. So some ways you could align yourself with the company are looking at their mission, vision, and values, getting a sense of their ways of working, and kind of asking about their team culture and how they communicate. So I'm just curious from you guys, you can put in the chat, what else, how might you understand what a company's culture is when you're at the interview stage? What are some things you could do in order to figure out kind of their culture, even when you don't have a position in the company? And you can write that in the chat. And the hiring process, yeah, exactly. You can get a really good sense of how a company works depending on their hiring process, how they're communicating with you, anything else. Yeah, all of that. Anything else? Okay, great. So maybe you don't know really about their culture before they might say something on their website. I think that that's a really, really good piece, Adam, like that you can really gauge it during informal coffee chats or after joining. I think it's true that you might not know exactly how things are, but there are some questions you can ask when you're in those informal chats, or even people who may have left the company who are on a different role. You can find those folks on LinkedIn. and just, see if they'd be willing to answer a few of your questions about 10 minutes, of just like, hey, I'm looking at applying with this role. I see you were in a similar team before. I'd just love to hear your thoughts. So that might be one way. But you're right that sometimes it's really hard to get an idea of cultural fit. And definitely online research, initiative norms, and understanding those kind of issues. So great. It really seems like you guys have a great idea of how to do that. So I've put some of this here on the next slide. Whoops. So when we're looking at the mission, values, vision, and values, it's good, before any interview, even if you're having kind of the first kind of recruiter screen, um, like, about on the website, LinkedIn, social media, founder stories, reviews, um, like that they might know a little bit more about the company claims. I think, Adam, I just want to go back to kind of what you mentioned is that sometimes folks don't want to chat. That makes sense. I mean, I think they don't have a huge invested stake in that. And that might just be in a finance career, but in some areas, if you're coming about it as really just trying to, I guess, educate yourself too on your career path, people will try to help. So I think maybe reframing it into a way of, hey, I'm really interested in this job. I'd love to hear, a little bit more about the culture so I could be a better fit. Maybe looking for folks who on their LinkedIn or something have talked about, X of this company, et cetera, because that usually says they might be proud of the work that they did there. It just depends, right? Um, so asking inquisitive questions. So really if someone is saying that their company culture is to move fast, you might like, how does move fast show up? What does that actually mean here? So really important that during the interview, you are asking the HR folks questions about like their work and their ways of working, because that not only shows that you've done your research, but also that you want to learn how the company works, and really reframing and mentioning this value either in an answer to an interview question or in a question that you have for them is going to show that. And then finally, in your about me statement. So before we go on to the next slide, because we're going to kind of go through a quick activity to try to give you a good answer to that, tell me about yourself, so you can start to kind of give back that language that folks are giving you when you're aligning yourself with that company. I'm just curious if we can guess, because we have a pretty active chat, which is great. We can guess what some of these common company values, what the company might be when I'm giving you some values, just so when you're thinking about common company values, you can start kind of playing with those ideas of how you might fit in with them. So these are 4 values. I think I've missed one, but be bold, focus on impact, move fast, and be open. What company might that be? Any guesses? So it's be bold, focus on impact, move fast, and be open. Apple close? Not Amazon? No, no. But we're close. We're in the right industry. Not Tesla. Yeah, close to Google. It's actually Meta. So we're right there. We're in that tech area. So that's one area. But I think because it was Anasat or Adam that mentioned Tesla. So for Tesla, which might be slightly different, have a slightly different feel to that, we have doing the best. So right, Elon is pretty vocal about like being the best, being one thing, and that might be a value you hold too, so that could really work for some folks. Taking chances and continuous learning, so that one might be different for Tesla. So I'll have you guess another one, which is different industry than the past two. So this one is serve, inclusion, integrity, community, and family. Any guesses? So not in the tech world. I'll give you that hint. Ooh, IKEA. Good guess. Any other guesses? Okay, that one is actually McDonald's. Oh, Coca-Cola. Yeah, so close. Yeah, exactly. So this is in kind of the food industry, but when you think about, like inclusion, community, family, McDonald's might try to promote those. Maybe a little bit, they're trying to avoid the like health might not be one of their top values, but they do make it really family friendly, right? They have kids areas, all of that. So kind of getting an understanding though of like where integrity shows up, right, might be more important for you. So if you're applying for a big role here, you can see where maybe some of those values are really clear, and maybe integrity is not as clear if you have some concerns about McDonald's, or if you really love McDonald's, you can kind of talk about how you have a value of family or community, and how you like the way that they show that as well. So great, we're getting the idea of that. Okay. So as promised in this, we're really going to focus about the tell me about yourself question, because it's really your moment to engage your interview right off the bat, and you will be asked this question, right, in almost every interview that you have. So you can tweak it a little bit depending on who you're speaking with. But it sets the tone and it immediately signals your fit. So obviously, it's also one of those questions where even though it's really like simple and we talk about it all the time, it can, when you're nervous or if you're not prepared, it can really set a bad tone if you don't really know. So you could say, tell me about yourself. And I've had some candidates go in and talk about like, oh, let's say my name is Tracy, and I am, you know, we'll call myself 25 years old. I wish. And I am really excited to be here, and I have experience in all of these things. And sometimes, I really want to grow my career, and I've heard really good things about this company. If you don't have a clear answer and a confident answer about who you are, um, it's gonna immediately get that interviewer to check out. So the way we're going to craft our tell me about yourself is by using this three-step framework. So it's really easy to just start thinking about this. I know it's not past, present, future. It's actually present, past, future. Um, that's clear, concise, and authentic. So you can just remember this story. And then with each interviewer, so for example, let's say that you were interviewing for a sales role and you're, working with an account manager, you could say, hey, here's my past, my present, past, and future. And I am really a partner with all of my account managers to make sure that there's a clear pass off between sales and account management, right? So you can start to tune these things. But getting this framework is kind of going to give you the things that you need in order to build on this tell me about yourself that aligns yourself with the culture of the company you're working for. So again, we'll start with the present, so who you are. So the past, your journey, like what got you there, and your future, why you're here and how you're going to grow. So you want to be, again, in the future highlighting something related to that team, the company, the role you're interviewing for, or the culture. So we're actually going to take some time to do this and then share in a couple of breakout rooms, because I think we have a good amount of pretty engaged folks today, which is exciting. Um, and before we do that, I wanted to just share an example. So I'm currently a product manager at Blank, which is a mid-sized company working on ed tech products. So maybe they know the company, maybe not. Your interviewer has glanced at your resume for like 30 seconds, right? Less than that. They might grab one thing from your resume, and that might be an interest that you listed. So like, for example, you might be known as, Ragu the surfer, or like Amber, the one that worked at I don't know, a smoothie shop at some point in her career, early in her career, right? So they might grab that, but you want to reorient them depending on what you're saying in this. So currently present, I'm currently a product manager. I'm currently doing this. I'm currently working in healthcare. I joined because of my passion. Why, why you did this. And previously I worked at blah, 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 and I did this. So you're kind of making that link from what you're currently doing, all of your background, just a few mentions, usually maybe about two roles before, depending on how long you've been in the workplace. And then you're going to grow your career and talk about how you want to change and why this place is the place, why this company, why this role is the job for you. So for example, if you looked at, a place, their values here would be innovation and camaraderie, you can talk about how those also are some of your values. And maybe they do have a value of learning. And so by you talking about, I'm looking to grow my career here, you can start aligning yourself really strategically to what their company values are. Now, are those companies always living those values? Maybe, maybe not, but we're going to assume good intent here. All right. So we're going to try this. And I'd like you for just take a couple of minutes. So I think we have until 25 after the hour. So Amanda, who's managing our tech, she can be ready for that. Um, and and then we'll get into breakout rooms and share feedback. So all you need to think about before we get into breakout rooms, again, is this is our framework. So your present, so who you are, your past is your journey, and your future. And whilst people start running that, before we get into breakout rooms, any questions about this framework? Doesn't look like it. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll just take a second to write your present, your past, and your future. Okay, maybe in about 30 seconds, we'll pop into 2 breakout rooms. And so in the breakout rooms, we're going to get some feedback on these statements. All right, so a few more culture questions you can just take note of. Is these are, again, very, very general. So like, what interested you in this role or company? Tell me about a time when you handled conflict or overcame a challenge. Where would you like to be in your career 5 years from now? And what are you most proud of achieving in various previous roles? These are all really good questions to answer, but with the framework of how then you're going to fit some of those company values into your answers. So for example, tell me about a time when you handled conflict and overcame a challenge. If integrity is a value, so that's a McDonald's value, right? It's a value for lots of companies and for a lot of people. But if integrity is a value, you can think about a time, okay, when did I have to handle conflict or overcome a challenge when I showed great integrity? Because these are, again, very, very common. I think the 5 most common HR or culture questions you're going to get, so that you can look at this and then attack that question, naming a value, and so that they leave that interview or that conversation thinking, wow, this person really embodies what we need in our team. So the next part of that, what interested you in a role or in your company, again, you'll do your research and you'll mention those things. So just wanted to put these culture questions again. recording of this will be available for you. So if you want to take notes and give yourself some good answers, these are just a few of the very, very regular questions you'll get for someone who's asking for culture fit. Okay, so then the final piece is that actually, speaking as someone who's been in HR for years, that your thank you notes really matter. So even those LinkedIn messages matter, even to recruiters who you've only spoken with once. So definitely within the first 24 hours of having your interview, sending a post-interview thank you, whether in the place you've been communicating most often. So if that's in LinkedIn, that's fine. Or if that's on your emails, that works as well. To pick the place that you've been most communicating and reaffirm your commitment to the role, the team, the company. Just saying, thank you so much for your time. I'm really interested in working blank for these reasons. It was lovely to meet whoever you met during that time. Because even though it seems like something a little extra, it's just another way of keeping yourself top of mind and also being able to engage in the process so that you don't get forgotten. I can't over exaggerate how important a little thank you note is because not a lot of people do them anymore. So it can be something that can set you apart from other candidates. And then before we kind of hop on, I wanted to give you guys a good amount of time to ask any questions. If you've been interviewing or if you want any more information about the culture fit, I'm open for questions. So just wanted to give you some space here. All right. And if there aren't any questions, a little bit more about how to continue working with me. I mean, did you have something? I know you came off mute for a second. I wasn't sure.
Yes. So my question would be, what do you think are the most important elements that an interviewee should show to the interviewer? Do you think that would be showing the experience that you have, or the strong values that you have?
I think it's a combination of both. And let's face it, people are hiring you for your experience, right? They want to know that you are going to get the job done. But they're also hiring for you to figure out what kind of teammate you're going to be. So maybe, you have 75% of the experience required for a role, but they can see that, you're a good communicator or that you really have high integrity, and that's something that they really value. So that is going to be that top 20, let's say if 75% is your experience, the 25% of the fit and the kind of teammate you're going to be is what's going to push you over the edge versus other candidates. Because a lot of folks might have, either different or other complementary experience. But again, you being able to show that you're an interested teammate, that you would be engaged with the company, loyal to the company, and loyal, really to the people you're working with beyond just what the company is going to kind of give you that edge. But absolutely important to talk about your experience. Um, my suggestion would be to use that in a in a way that you're responding to questions. So they might ask you questions about your experience, then you can get into the details. But to give this general overview about who you are, the things that you value, and then wait for the other experience questions to highlight how you've actually done these certain things in the past, to talk about the technical skills you have. Let the interviewer be in control of that, give really specific examples, but for this kind of general HR cultural interview, they want to know who you are. So don't shy away from answering that too.
Thank you so much. These are so valuable. And just a follow-up question. So one interview, for example, you have five interviews with five different companies. How can
Hmm.
you like have a personalized answer based on these? Because as you said, each company has like different values. And what do you think is the best way to understand these values so you can know the right approach and the right values that you gotta match make with you and the company, and thus making a great
Yeah,
impression.
definitely. Like I think it is worth, like, especially, the companies you're really interested in. doing the research of like understanding those values and even taking in, you can take a notebook in with an interview. If I have a candidate that comes into me and they look really prepared, that they actually have questions for me, I don't think most people would count that against you. And I think, in fact, people would say, okay, this person like does their research, is actually prepared. Those are good things in a candidate. So I, might come in with this. I usually take a small black notebook um, with maybe a few notes of the people I'd be meeting and maybe some things that I wanted to highlight. And, I'd write their values just right on top of that notebook so that that with every company, you'd have, a different set of those values. So just so you're primed, you can look at it beforehand to kind of just start thinking about those things. Because the idea is that you want this to be natural. You want it to be authentic. Um, and so you shouldn't force like putting in a word that you wouldn't normally say. But if you're just thinking about it beforehand, naturally, I think you'll start, relating your experience to some of these common values. And then the way to kind of, again, position yourself is to really ask those questions. So in an HR interview, oftentimes, someone will ask, oh, do you have any questions? And when I have a candidate who says no, unless we've had like an hour-long discussion and I feel like we've gotten too much of a sense of each
Yeah.
other, that feels like, oh, that's too bad. You don't actually have any thoughtful questions for me. You might just say, if you haven't gotten to any of the value stuff, you might just say to them at the very end, I saw on the website that you're really talking about relationships as a big value for your company. Can you tell me more about that? Or, what are relationships like here? Because if you're not grilling them, but you will get a sense of, if they're like, oh yeah, relationships, we have great relationships,
Mhm.
you automatically know that that's fake, right? You're not gonna like, so
Yeah.
so if but if instead, someone is like, that's actually my favorite part of working here, is like, I have great relationships, good mentoring. Like if someone can authentically speak to that, that that value really exists in the company. And that's going to give you the upper hand to make or break the interview, whatever you decide.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Just one last question. In
Sure.
terms of preparation for these interviews, what do you think is the best way, um, for practicing these interviews and just getting used to the process? Just if you have any kind of resources that would help us, prepare better for the
Yeah.
interviews in many
Yeah. I
dimensions.
mean,
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like this is part of the reason why you work with a coach, is
Hmm.
because you can role play that, you can talk about areas that might make you nervous or that sort of thing. I think there's really no way of getting good at interviews beyond practicing them, and practicing them with somebody that you trust is going to be one of the, who can actually ask those questions, is going to be one of the best ways. Um, in terms of other resources, you can look online, you can try ChatGPT to just get a list of common interview questions and write down your answers, and different interview questions will kind of get at different traits. So just so that you have really tangible examples that you can give an interviewer, that you're prepared to give, because you, like in any situation, it can be nerve-wracking to go into an interview. And if you've already, you're like, okay, these are three challenges that I can talk about how I've overcome them. Or this is one thing I'm really proud of in my last job. If you've actually written that down and you can remember it, you'll be able to talk about it more in the interview. Um, Versus like if you just go in blind. But the way to actually, when you write something and when you're saying it, or when you're doing it in a little bit more of a off the cuff way, um, it might sound different. And that's why I think working with a coach, or even, asking your friends and family to just sit down and ask you some awkward interview questions and give you feedback, is probably one of the most valuable ways you can get practice.
Mm. Outstanding. Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you.
Yeah, you're really, really welcome. All right. So I think we're going to finish up here. I know we're done a little bit early. So again, open for any other questions if you have them. But if you wanted to work with me as a coach, I'd love to take on new clients. So I have package discounts for the new year. So there's a code here, and at the end of this presentation. Again, the recording will be sent to you, and that's good for January. So feel free to do that, and you can take a scan of the QR code. But really, I think, it's exciting getting in, when you're applying for jobs, when you're going through these interviews, because again, you are also kind of making a decision for where you want your career to be. So just remember that what matters the most is really how you're showing up, and that you get to assess these companies too, and that hopefully there's good synchronicity so that you can talk about who you are and not just your experience, but how you would fit into their company culture. Well, all right. Okay, so I think we're going to close it here. And if you want to get in touch, I hope to see you on Leland. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tracy. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye.